If you're looking for a form of contraception, I'm going to tell you this fucked up story of when I had 2 under 2 and what went down. This story literally put me on the map on my IG because it just went viral. Like, everyone was sending it to everyone and I gained all these followers. And I was just keeping it real about my day. Basically, my daughter had her 2nd birthday and she was learning to toilet train. And at this time, on her birthday, it was like a Sunday and we had it at home. We had like this Mickey Mouse costume and everything that came, but it was my sister. And I had to return this costume the very next day. So it was a Monday. I was on my own. My husband was at work. And I was like, that's okay. I'm going to brave it. I'm going to take my 1-year-old and my 2-year-old out. Now, my 2-year-old was toilet training. I had done 4 to 5 days of at-home toilet training. She was fully toilet trained, only had 1 accident between that time. She was just someone who got it right away, so I thought. Before we actually go to return the costume, I was like, let's go to the shops. I need to get milk and bread because I'm running out of milk, and my daughter was drinking cow's milk, and so was my son. I was trying to bribe my kids to get through the whole Woolworths shop. So I just said, oh, look, if you guys really behave, I'll take you into Kmart and I'll get you a toy. Now, at this time, I didn't have my pram. So I had called a friend ahead of time and I said, hey, can I borrow your pram? The pram has actually been taken out of my car. It's in my husband's car. I don't have one. I need to go to the shops. Can I borrow yours? And she only had one of those travel strollers. So the travel stroller had no basket underneath, no nothing. So I go with the travel stroller. I go into Woolworths and I say to like my kids, like, just be good. Like, especially my 2-year-old, I was like, please be good. Like, we're going to go to Kmart. We're going to get you a toy, bribing her as much as I could just to get through this day alone. So at this point with 2 under 2, I was really scared of going out on my own because it was always a shit show, right? I was traumatized. But in my head, I'm like, the more I do it, the easier it's going to get. So I'm like, fuck it, I'm going to do it. So I pick up this travel pram from my girlfriend, get the milk and bread, and I literally have like 2 bottles of milk. I have some bread with me. So I'm like carrying them, right? Carrying the bags, they're heavy, on top of my handbag with me. I go into Kmart, I'm like, yay, you've been so good, let's go get you a toy. Go into Kmart, I'm holding these 2 bags of groceries. I've got the travel pram with my son in there, and my daughter's walking around. My daughter's walking, and then she goes mid-shop. She's like, Mum, I have to go to the toilet, I gotta do wee-wee. And I was like, oh shit. And she's making that face like I'm about to piss myself. And I'm like, fuck. So I look at her work and I go, sorry, my daughter really needs to go toilet. Is there a toilet that she can use here? And she's like, no, the closest one's actually on the other end of the shopping center. And I'm like, she's not going to make it. And she's like, I'm really sorry, we don't have one here. I'm like, shit. So I think quick on my feet and I grab a fucking potty off the shelf. I sit it down. I go into like an aisle that like is quieter. I sit her ass down. So at this point, I've got 2 bags, 1 pram, baby in there, potty with wee. And I'm not going to leave the potty with wee in the middle of the shops. That's disgusting. So I pick up the potty and I'm holding it. She goes and picks out a toy. I'm like, hurry up quick, because I'm mortified. I'm holding a fucking potty with piss in there, 2 bags that are so heavy, and I'm pushing a pram. So like, as you can imagine, my hands are falling apart and I'm fucking mortified, right? She picks out a toy and she goes to, I'm like, sweet, let's go to the checkout. And I'm rushing towards the checkout. She's following me. And then she starts crying. She's like, I don't want this toy anymore. I want a different one. Before I could turn around and go, no, she runs off. So at this point, I've got potty, bags, pram. I'm having a mental breakdown. My 2-year-old's run off. I'm like, I turn the pram around. I'm like, Nina, and I can't walk fast because this piss is going to drop on me. And that's the last thing I need, right? So at this point, I literally stop. I can see her at the end of the aisle and she's like frantically looking through toys. I literally am crying. Like, I've got tears coming down my eyes. And this woman just stops me and she goes, you've got this. I'm like, thank you. And I'm like, I really don't in my head. So I grab my daughter by the arm and I'm like, let's go now. Like, you are in big trouble. We need to leave. Holding the trolley, holding the bags in my hand, the piss in my hand. My daughter, I've like got her hand with the trolley. So like her hand's there. So she's crying. We get to the checkout. I go to self-service because I'm fucking mortified that I've got this thing in my hand. I get to the checkout and obviously like the thing weighs more because it's got piss in it. So then I go to scan it. No, incorrect things in the bagging area. Fuck. I call over the sales assistant. My daughter's losing it. Now my son is losing it. I've got these 2 bags that I've now put down along with my groceries. My groceries I've put down along with the piss. She sorts it out. And as she sorts it out, my daughter runs back. I leave everything and I just take my son. So I leave the potty and I leave the groceries. I take my son, I beeline to her, grab her by the wrist. And at this point, I take my son out, I put her in, and I get him to start walking. Now he's 1. He's not walking very well, right? This is just to get out of the shop. I finally get out of the shop. I'm like, fuck, what am I going to do with this with this piss, right? So the ladies sorted it out. I'm like, oh my God, get me the fuck out of this shopping center because I'm going to lose my mind. I then get out of the Kmart store, and as I'm getting out, I've now these bags are starting to rip and they're not holding on because I put a little bit on the trolley, but my son wasn't heavy enough to actually carry it, hold it. So I'm like, fuck, what am I gonna do? So I stop and this is middle section of leaving the shopping center, and I'm just kind of trying to rearrange myself. I put my daughter back out, my son back in, because at this point it's just becoming too hard with him and we're walking so slow. My daughter's now walking really slow because she's got a toy in her hand. She's really interested in it. She's excited. I'm trying to rush out of the shopping center. I finally get out of the shopping center, what feels like 10 years later, get out of the shops, I grab this fucking potty, I throw the piss out of it, onto a bush area. I leave the potty next to where the trolleys are because I'm like, I'm not taking this home with piss. If there's even a slightest bit, it's going to end up pouring in. So I literally look at one of the trolleys, I put it in. I'm like, at this point, being a good civilian, I don't care, right? Get the kids in the car. I drive past the costume place and I call the guy and I say, listen, I've got 2 kids in the car. I'm having a mental breakdown. Please, is someone able to come out and take this costume off me? Because I'm so scared that if I leave the kids in the car, something's going to happen. This guy's the sweetest man on earth. He's like, no worries at all. Give me a call when you're here. I get there. He comes out. I give him the costume and I'm like, I'm so sorry. Thank you so much for coming out. He's like, no, that's no problem at all. And he looks at the kids, and my daughter was being a little brat and she was yelling and screaming, and my son was crying, and he goes, guys, be good for your mum. And they shut the fuck up. So I was like, hallelujah. He leaves. They start screaming even more. I fucking drive home. I don't think I've driven home more faster in my whole entire life. I get in the house. I chuck them straight in their cot because they're ready to have a nap. Chuck them straight in bed. Close the door. And I literally just start bawling my eyes out. I'm like, how the fuck did I survive that? I get on my stories and I share. This is after I've calmed down and they're still napping. I share the story, and my God, was it a story? I still get people to this day DMing me about that story and how it's embedded in their brain, because honestly, I'm glad, because it's embedded in mine. That forever scarred me. Anyone who wants to have 2 under 2, I'm like, just listen to this story. Just listen to this story. It was fucking awful. It was the worst experience of my life, and honestly the most stressful. Having kids ain't no easy feat, let me tell you that.
Snacks in hand, the vibe is set, and once I start, don't eat too much because you gotta stay fun. But come on, bestie, it's hi, bestie boo, I missed you. What you doing? Wanna go get your snack? You wanna go get your rolling equipment? Yeah. Okay, so first of all, your girl has been working for y'all. Ebook is going to be available as a physical book very, very soon. I've been trying to do this for the longest and it just hasn't worked. But very soon you guys can actually get the physical book version. It's gonna have to be a little more expensive because it is the physical book. I promise it's worth it. Actually, I think my books are very, very underrated. If you've bought them, you know. So if you've gotten any one of my books, please comment right now. Oh my gosh, I'm getting to the story, okay? So the story is actually a little interesting, and it's also a bit of a trigger warning. Trigger warning is great. So for the sake of the story, let's call this girl Janelle. Now, this story happened to Janelle back in her home country when she was 6 years old. So when Janelle was born, she was one of the babies that went through this ritual where her family had her buried for about 3 days. Yes, it's a thing. I know there's a lot of, new followers. You probably don't know, but yeah, it's a thing. It's like a protection ritual. When a baby is born, they bury that baby underground for 3 days straight. And after 3 days, they go get the baby. The baby's perfectly fine. Nothing's wrong with them. However, they now have a certain kind of protection. So Janelle was one of those kids. Now, fast forward when she was about 7 years old, right? This all happened in her village. There is this young man. This young man is about 17 to 18 years old. And this young man took a liking to Janelle very much. At first, it was very friendly. It was very helpful. It was very big brother, right? And then it kind of turned into kind of weird, creepy, but Janelle at the time, she's only 6 years old, so she knows it doesn't feel right, like the relationship, but she doesn't know. However, nobody else is noticing it too, so it must be okay, like it's fine. Her family loved that little boy. Like, he's such a nice boy. He's a good boy of the village, you know? To the point where he was actually in charge of picking up Janelle from school, because his family and Janelle's family were neighbors and they were very close. So his job was to pick her up on his way back home from school, because her school, like, he has to pass her school to get home. And he would stay with her for about an hour until her parents get home from work. And then, you know, the whole transfer things happen. And so this worked very well for about a month, right? For everybody else, not for Janelle, because at first she liked this boy. Let's call him Junior. But Junior was getting creepy in a weird way that she didn't understand. And so a month goes by and it's, you know, it's fine. Like, Junior helps her with her homework sometimes, but like kind of like swipes her hand a weird way, or her neck, or like, you know. When Junior felt like it was safe enough and he earned everybody's trust, he did it. He started to molest her. It wasn't straight up grape at first, but that was the plan. He was leading up to grape. He needed her to gain his trust with that too, with like the touching and the rub. I don't want to get into it, but you get the picture. Anyway, so he's doing that to her. She doesn't know what to do. She is changing. She's acting weird. Like, she doesn't know what's happening to her. And this is happening like every day. So I guess some time goes by and he decides now he wants to move up to the next level. And that's the grape. This time around, he decided to actually take his thing out, because his full intentions was to, you get it. And so Janelle starts crying and starts to tell him she doesn't want to play anymore. And at that point, he came too far to not play anymore. And so he starts to get a little aggressive with her. And as he's doing that, she hears a voice. Oh, I should clarify that they're in her house, by the way. Like, whenever he picks her up, they go to her house. You know, they wait there. Parents come home and he just goes home next door. So as he starts to get a little aggressive with her, she hears a voice. And the voice tells her, call on to me. It's as if the voice was in the room with them, but he doesn't seem like he heard the same voice that she just heard. And then she heard it again. It said, call on to me. And then when she looked to where the voice is coming from, it's coming from this Loa statue that her parents have. She knows the name of the Loa because, you know, it's her parents. You know, that's what they do. That's their religion. And so she calls onto the Loa. The moment she calls onto the Loa, this nigga gets snatched up across the room on some scary movie type shit. That's exactly what she said. And then afterwards, he starts screaming this blood screeching scream. Caught every neighbor's attention. And funny enough, her parents got home at that exact moment. The moment they got home, they went straight for the little girl, grabbed her and said, are you okay? Are you okay? Janelle is crying. Janelle is like, no, he tried to touch me, blah, blah, blah. And her parents is like, yeah, we know. She's like, you know? How do you know? He said the Loa told them to get home immediately. That's why they're home early. Meanwhile, that boy is still in the corner with his thing out, his pants down, screaming at God knows what. His parents had to come get him. They took him to the hospital. The hospital couldn't help him. By the next day, he was gone. Like, unalived, gone. And now parents don't fuck around. This actually became this huge voodoo magic war thing, because then his parents weren't very happy about that. Janelle says if y'all want those story times too, let her know in the comments and she'll definitely send me some more. But yeah, y'all, that's the story. Don't forget to let me know what you was eating in the comments. I want to see all the snacks and the meals and everything. Don't forget to get your ebook, which will soon be available in the physical version. Streaming my song. I love you. Bye.
I got an email from a girl who said that she went to the Appalachian Mountains and there was a mimic there that was learning her and her friends' behaviors to mimic them and terrorize them. But this girl wanted to remain anonymous. She wanted me to call her Sam for the story, so I'm going to call her Sam. So Sam was staying in a small cabin deep in the Appalachian Mountains with her 2 friends. This was supposed to be a simple hiking trip. No phones, just forest, fog, quiet, them relaxing and hanging out. She said that during the day, the mountains were absolutely beautiful. She described these huge trees that were like disappearing in the mist. You could walk for hours and not see another person, and they really liked that. But the weird part started the first night. It was around 11 p.m. when they were all just hanging out, chilling, talking to each other, when all of a sudden the forest just goes quiet, noticeably silent. She said that they couldn't hear crickets, wind, owls. It sounded almost like someone muted the world. She said that her friend Evan kind of looked at her and was like, why did everything just stop? And she is like, I don't know. You're right. It's pretty unnatural. They were pretty freaked out by this. It was that quiet. So they're sitting there talking about how weird this is and how weird they feel when suddenly they hear this noise. Just a pop. Like a single rock hitting a tree, or like someone hit a tree with a stick. At the time, they just kind of nervously laughed it off. They're thinking maybe it was just a branch that fell off a tree, or maybe it was an animal. But then they hear it again, just pop, pop. She said that these noises were spaced out, almost like something was responding to something else. But at this point, they decide that they're just going to ignore it and go to bed because they're pretty freaked out and they don't really want to think about it. She said the second night is when things got worse. Around 2 a.m., they woke up in the middle of the night because they were hearing something outside. And this sounded almost like footsteps crunching on leaves. She describes it as like a crunch, pause. Crunch, pause. Now, at first they just think that maybe this is a deer or something until it gets to the porch. She said that she could tell that something was on the porch because the boards were creaking differently and it did not sound like an animal. As soon as she heard those creaks, her heart immediately just starts racing because whatever was outside on that porch was walking back and forth, just outside pacing on the porch. It was very slowly, almost as if whatever it was thinking, like walking back and forth just to think. So she decides that she's going to sit up in bed and she's just kind of listening for a couple of minutes. And then she realizes something. The footsteps are getting closer and closer to her window. Then complete silence. Then she starts to hear breathing right on the other side of the glass. Heavy, slow breathing. She said that she was way too terrified to look. She was not looking outside. She sat there for a minute, and this was happening for a bit until eventually it just walked away, and then she fell asleep somehow. So by the third morning, they're a little freaked out, and at this point, they're too freaked out to not say anything. So they decide that they're going to talk to the owner of the cabin. So they asked the owner of the cabin, listen, is there any animals around at night? Maybe that would be like kind of stalking the house? And he just kind of shrugged, like very nonchalantly, just shrugged and said, I don't know. Yeah, sometimes. But she said that the way that he said it made her feel very weird, like he knew something that he didn't want to explain. Well, that night they decide that they're going to stay up later by the fire outside. Big mistake. So they're outside hanging around the fire, they're talking, they're having a good time, when suddenly everything just goes silent again. Dead silent. The woods, no owls, no crickets, no nothing. They can't hear anything. It's like the whole world was muted again. The only thing that they could hear at this point was the fire just crackling. Then they hear something, and it's coming from deep within the trees. It's a human whistle. 3 short notes. So her friend Evan immediately stands up and is like, did you hear that? Did you hear that? But before Sam could even answer him, the exact same whistle came from the opposite side of the cabin. It was not deep in the forest anymore. It was much closer too. They're looking at each other like, what is going on right now? What is going on when they hear it again? Except for this time it's coming from behind them. At this point, they realize something very unsettling. Whatever is making these noises, there's more than one of them. She said that after this, they went inside pretty damn quickly. Thankfully, nothing else happens that night, but the 4th night was the worst night, and it's why she will never go back. So the 4th night, they all go out, they have a good time, the day is fine again, right? They go to sleep later on that night. Sam wakes up in the middle of the night. It's 3 o'clock in the morning because she needs water. The cabin was pitch black, and both of her friends were asleep. As she walks past the window, she notices something outside. There's a shape standing near the tree line. Now, at first, she just thinks that this is some shadow, right? Then it moved. It stepped forward into the moonlight, and she swears that it looked just like a person. But something about the way it moved was not right, and something about the way it looked was wrong. Its arms hung low, too low, like below its knees, and its head kept tilting, almost like it was trying to understand something. She said at this point, she just froze, and then it did something that made her stomach drop. it spoke. And Evan's voice, but very distorted, like it couldn't find the right pitch. It said, "Hey, come here for a second." So she slowly turns around, and Evan is still on the couch asleep behind her. Her friend's still sleeping upstairs. And then the voice comes again. It says, "Come outside." Same tone, same accent, but not Evan. So she slowly starts backing away from the window, and she's just trying not to make any noise. And then the voice spoke again, except for this time it sounded like her. It said, "Hello?" She said that hearing her own voice coming from outside, knowing that it was not her, obviously, was incredibly disturbing. At that point, she runs into the bedroom upstairs to wake up her friend, and she runs back downstairs to wake Evan up. And they all get up. They go downstairs together. They do not sleep for the rest of the night at all. None of them looked outside again. So the next morning, they all get up and they're like, "F this, we're leaving. We cannot be here anymore." So they pack up and they're going to leave early when Evan goes and walks around the cabin, and he is like, "Hey guys, come here for a second." In the dirt beside the porch were footprints, but they were not normal human footprints. They were huge. They looked human, but like stretched out. Like someone had taken a normal footprint and just stretched it out longer. The weirdest part, they stopped right under the window where she saw that thing standing. Even scarier, there was no footprints walking away. There was only the footprints leading towards the cabin. She said that she's told the story a few times, and most people think it's either an animal or someone was messing with them. So when they were leaving, the cabin owner walks up to them and he asks them, how was your stay? And they tell him about the footsteps and about the whistling and about everything that had happened. She said that he then went quiet and said something that she will never forget. He said, "Next time you hear something calling from the woods out here," and he looked straight at her, he said, "Don't say anything you don't want repeated." And that's when she realized something. That thing outside the cabin, it wasn't just making noises, it was learning their voices. And they had stayed in those woods for 4 nights, listening, talking, laughing, giving it plenty of time to practice in her mind. She said that she's heard a lot about mimics, but never really in the Appalachian Mountains, which I have heard several stories about mimics in the Appalachian Mountains. And nothing spooky has happened since then, but she will never forget about this night. So what did you guys think about that story?
Hello and welcome back to a series of spooky stories, The Haunted Tea Spill. This series is brought to you by all things spooky and ungodly amounts of paranormal activity. You already know what it is. Here's the necklace. Love it. It's down here if you want it. Now onto the story. The girl in the cemetery. When I was 8 years old, my house sat right next to a cemetery. Not near one, not down the road from one. I mean, if you cross the narrow blacktop driveway to the side of our house, you were standing among headstones. No, thanks. That was it. That was the barrier between us and the deceased. One summer night, my best friend, our neighbor, and I dragged our sleeping bags into the front yard. Next to a fucking cemetery? Wow, you're brave. There was a meteor shower. Still no. We lived in a tiny village with almost no street lights, so when something like that happened, the whole town treated it like a holiday. We laid there counting streaks of fire across the sky, gasping every time one burned brighter than the last. That's when I felt it. That cold, sinking feeling in your chest, the kind that tells you something is wrong. The first thing wrong is living next to a cemetery. I turned my head toward the cemetery and saw her, a little girl. She looked like she had stepped out of another century. Her hair was pulled halfway up with a ribbon, and she wore this old-fashioned dress like something from Alice in Wonderland. But the worst part, she was glowing, like Thackeray Banks's little sister in fucking Hocus Pocus. That's crazy. Not white, not soft, green. Oh, never mind. Not at all the same. A sick, unnatural green. Like rot. Ew. She held a lantern and she was walking between the graves. Slow and careful. Like she knew exactly where she was going. Her feet never made a sound. I couldn't breathe. I turned to my best friend and whispered, "Do you see her?" Her eyes were huge. Her mouth hung open. She didn't even look at me. She just whispered, "Uh-huh. Yeah, girl, me too." When I looked back, the girl was gone. No footsteps, no fading glow, nothing, just the cemetery. Years later, I lived in the same house. My bedroom window faced the graves. One night around 1 a.m., I couldn't sleep and I just felt this pull, like something was calling me to the window. I sat there staring, not thinking, not blinking, just watching the dark. That's when the sky turned orange. Birds began chirping. My stomach dropped. I checked my phone and it was after 6 a.m.
Dissociation final boss. 5 hours had disappeared. I never moved. I never even remember blinking. I never saw the little girl again, but when I was 18, we lost the house to foreclosure. I moved away, different state, different life. But every time I go back, I feel pulled to park in front of that house, and I don't know why, but I sit there and I cry like I'm grieving something I can't remember. Sometimes I wonder, do the new owners see her? Does she still walk with her lantern between graves, looking for someone? Oh, and one more thing. My brother swears a UFO chased him home one night, right past that same cemetery. Just so casually. Oh yeah, hey, my brother said that he was chased by a UFO. No big deal. Maybe that house was just open to things. Maybe so. What? It's just the casual UFO thrown in there too that really threw me off. But rated on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the least scary, creepy, spooky, 10 being the most. If you have a story of your own that you want to submit, you can do so on the link tree in my profile. I will see you all the next episode. Stay spooky, friends.
My name is Lehua. I've been watching your videos and I decided to share my encounters. I'm 22 years old and I'm from Oahu, Hawaii. My whole life, since I can remember, I've had nothing but encounters. But the one I want to share happened when I was living on the west side of Oahu. My parents, 2 brothers, and I moved into a house on farmland with a pig farm right next to our lot. At the time, I was 16 and in a relationship with my oldest son's father. Our relationship was super toxic, which caused me to build up a lot of negative emotions that I didn't know at the time would be the start of everything. Whenever he came to visit, he would stand by my window and call my name so I could let him inside. After a while, my mom told me she didn't like him and that he needed to stop coming to my window to call for me. Later, my mom and I got into a huge argument. She made me so mad that I stayed in my room for 3 days. I didn't eat, drink, or even use the bathroom. All I did was think the most vile, evil thoughts, like how I wanted my mom dead. The whole time, she didn't check up on me and went out with my auntie and my siblings, which made me even more mad. Each day that passed, I was accumulating so much negative energy that I didn't realize what was happening behind the scenes. On the 3rd day, I decided to take a full body mirror picture for Instagram. I didn't post it, but a few hours later, I had a gut feeling to check it. I didn't know why, but when I did, my heart dropped. I zoomed in on the picture. Behind me, in my closet, it looked like a Shinigami with long horns that reached the top of my closet. Its jaw was stretched all the way to the floor while it looked at me. I decided to brush it off though. That was the worst mistake I ever made. That same night, my auntie slept with me, and I had all the lights off. Because of trauma from past encounters, I never sleep with the lights off, even to this day. But since my auntie was there, I felt safe. That night, I had a nightmare. I didn't think much of it because I've had nightmares my whole life. I thought it was just another regular dream. Until morning came. I woke up to sunlight shining into my room. I decided to stare out the window for a little when I noticed footprints on my ceiling. I waited until my auntie left my room to see if I was imagining things. I wasn't. There were footprints that led from the top of my closet all around my room to right above where I had been sleeping. It looked like something had been crawling, walking upside down on my ceiling from my closet to above my bed. I grabbed a stool and tried to wipe them off. They never came off. I kept it a secret because I was so scared. Fast forward again. My oldest son's father came back around.
Let's read another scary story. This happened in July 2019 before the COVID pandemic started. 2 of my friends and I really wanted to travel to the north of Portugal. We live in the capital of the country, Lisbon, and in the north there is a place called Grift, a natural park where people can camp. Instead of tents, we rented small bungalows because we don't really like sleeping in tents. Everything was going well. One of my friends, Sophia, is a very good driver and very down to earth when it comes to supernatural things. My other friend, Carla, loves this type of thing. She even dresses a bit like a witch and is fascinated by anything supernatural. We arrived in Garush by car and everything was beautiful. The smell of the forest in the morning, with the mist still slowly disappearing, was amazing. We went to the reception to get the key to our bungalow and walked to it. It was about a 10-minute walk from reception. There were 3 bungalows in that area. In one of them, there were people around our age, maybe about 25. They looked like a couple, and they also had a dog, a Portuguese water dog, which in the US is known as the dog that the Obamas had. In the other bungalow, there was an older couple, around 65 years old. They looked like a very sweet pair. We went to the supermarket to buy food, and when we came back, the area was full of sounds from birds and animals. It was beautiful. Night started to fall, but we felt safe because there were cameras outside the bungalows. My friend Sophia went to sleep because she was tired from the long drive. Carl and I stayed watching TV, and later we decided to go outside in front of the bungalow just to breathe the incredibly pure air. We did this for several days. We walked through the forest and enjoyed nature. On the 4th day, we did the same thing, but this time the 3 of us went outside together. It was around 10 p.m. when we suddenly heard a scream. It was the girl from the bungalow next door shouting to her boyfriend not to go because it might just be an animal. When he opened the door, he looked at us and said, "Can you hear that scream too?" We said yes. He said he would go to reception in case someone needed help. My friend Carla, who loves night walks and mysterious things, said she would go with him. So the rest of us stayed near our bungalow with the girl and her dog, waiting outside. About 10 minutes later, the boyfriend came back and said the woman at reception told him it might be an animal, but there was a flashlight somewhere along the path. He said he was going to check it out, and we all decided to go together. I thought it was strange that Carla had stayed at reception because she normally loves this kind of thing. We walked for about 5 minutes until we reached a flashlight lying on the ground, turned on. When I looked at my friend Sophia's face, that's when I felt it. There were no sounds, no birds, no insects, nothing. Only the wind. I had a bad feeling and said we should go back, but the boyfriend kept insisting we go help whoever might be out there. When I got angry and said we were going back, he suddenly started laughing at us. That's when I noticed something disturbing. He had one single tooth in the front that was very yellow. The rest of his teeth were white. At that moment, the girl's dog started barking aggressively at him. He turned to us and said that going back wouldn't matter because he would always know where we were. Every hair on my body stood up. I knew something about this wasn't normal. I screamed at the girls to run. We all ran back to the bungalow. I didn't look back, but I felt like he was behind me. When we got close to the bungalow lights, I started shouting for him not to come any closer. He just stood near the forest, laughing. Suddenly, we saw 2 flashlights coming down the road. It was Carla and the girl's real boyfriend returning from reception, asking what was happening. I immediately shouted for them to come inside the bungalow. When I looked again, the thing was not there anymore, and we told them everything. Right away, Carla said, "You found a mimic." I'd never even heard that word in my life. None of us slept that night. We all stayed together in our bungalow. At 6 in the morning, since I hadn't slept at all, we went to reception and asked them to call the police. Later, the police showed us the security footage from the cameras. They said there was nobody there. But in the video, you could see me screaming at nothing and pointing to someone in front of the bungalow like I was a crazy person. After that, we decided to leave, and the couple, who had now become our friends, also decided to leave. While we were packing our things into the car, the police said they still wanted to talk to us later. We exchanged contact information with the couple. As we were leaving, the elderly couple from the 3rd bungalow came outside. They asked if we were leaving, and I said yes and asked if they had heard us screaming during the night. The woman said no, that they sleep very heavily. When I said goodbye to her, she smiled at me. And again, every hair on my body stood up, because she had the exact same smile and the same yellow tooth. I immediately turned away and told my friends in the car. They said that when we got home, we should call the detective. 2 weeks later, the detective called me. He told me that the 3rd bungalow had never been used for guests. It was only used to store construction materials. So it was impossible for an elderly couple to have stayed there. To this day, the police never gave us the video footage we asked for so many times, the footage where we hoped to see the elderly couple. And I still live today without knowing what really happened. Thank you for reading my story. Thank you so much for submitting this story. This is so creepy, and I love how your friend Carla was like, "Yep, that's a mimic." Because I think that if anything, the elderly woman in the 3rd bungalow was most certainly some sort of like witch or mimic who is able to shapeshift. And it's so crazy that she had the exact same smile as well. If you guys have any stories you'd like me to read, please email them to me and I will get to them if I can. And I will see you in the next one.
Let's read another scary Reddit story. Never hike in Arizona. I was in my beat-up 4-door pickup truck driving down the long, winding red dirt with all of the beautiful red rock on each side. I drove for another couple of hours, and I finally arrived at the dirt parking lot. I stepped out right on a long skid mark towards the exit. I looked at the amazing red and yellow sunset. I unloaded my backpack and started on my 2-day hike. I got 20 minutes in, and I saw the gleaming stars in the black soup of the night, so I rushed to put up my tent, and I got it set up in record-breaking time. Then I slipped in and started my alarm for first daylight. I could not keep my eyes closed for longer than a minute because of the constant yapping of the coyotes, but I finally fell asleep. I shot awake at the sound of my alarm. Then it immediately went quiet. No coyotes, no crickets. I checked my phone. It's dead. What? I whispered to myself. Then it clicked in my head. The alarm sound was coming from outside. I felt the adrenaline coursing through my body. The freaking alarm was coming from outside of my tent. I reached in my bag and grabbed my knife, clutching it in my hand. Then I grabbed my phone and slowly started unzipping my tent, the sound shattering the night. As soon as I got up, I ran as fast as I could straight for my car, my legs pounding on the ground, moving faster than they ever have. I hear footsteps just feet behind me, and I realized my keys were in the right wheel well of my car. I knew I could not get to my car in time, so I veered left and scrambled up the red rock, hoping that whatever was following me could not climb. I felt a hot pain down my leg as I got halfway up. When I got to the top, I heard it trying to climb, but it couldn't. I looked at my leg, 3 long gashes from what looked like claws. I looked at my surroundings. It was flat level plateau drop-offs on each side. I could see the path to my car. So building up all the courage I could, I picked up the biggest rock I could and threw it down where I could hear the noises coming from. Then I heard an ear-piercing screech. I then ran and climbed down on the side closest to the path, slamming my head on the rock. Then bright lights started flashing through my head. I fell to the ground, dropping my knife, and I could feel hot tears rolling down my face. I forced myself to my feet, then started running to my car, and as I ran, my legs started throbbing. I could barely see the edge of the parking lot through the tears. Then I heard those horrible, dreadful footsteps behind me again. I grabbed my keys, gashing my hand on the rusty wheel well, hit the button to unlock my car, jumped in, jammed my keys in the ignition, slammed my foot on the gas, and drove away. In the rearview mirror, I could make out the black figure. It was tall, lanky, and had weird things protruding from its back. It had kinks all over its arms and legs and giant claws on each hand. So yeah, never hike in Arizona. I think we can all agree that was terrifying. And that's also one of the stories that's going to be on my new podcast episode that comes out tomorrow. So make sure that you're following me on Spotify so you don't miss the episode. Let's read some creepy Reddit stories. I would occasionally fall asleep on the sofa after my girlfriend had gone to bed and then just end up staying there for the night. This one time I had done that, and I kind of half woke up at some point because I could hear her creeping around doing something near the front door. With my eyes still closed, I heard her walk softly across the room close to the sofa. I felt her lean over me for a few seconds and then walk away. I vaguely remembered something about her needing to leave early for work, so I just rolled over and went back to sleep. I then became aware that there was a strong, cold breeze in the room and realized that the front door was wide open. Thinking she'd accidentally not closed it properly, I got up to close it and glanced at the clock. It was 3 a.m. That absolutely wasn't my girlfriend that had been walking around. I'd left the front door unlocked. Someone entered my house, checked through some bags and coats that were hanging up, walked over to where I was sleeping, stopped to look at me for a few seconds before, thankfully, creeping back out after finding me lying there on the sofa. It felt so creepy to know that some weirdo had just been standing there staring at me, inches away while I'm just lying there half asleep. I dread to think what would have happened if I'd opened my eyes. Never left the door unlocked again. I was walking through one of the 2 cemeteries in my town in Scotland with a friend. Approaching the other side and in my peripheral, I notice a bush has movement within it. Something emerges, about 3 feet tall, short, stocky, wide, waddling toward our direction from the side. It brushes up against my back and carries on walking into the cemetery darkness. I was terrified and carried on walking. I asked my friend if they had seen what just happened. They said yes, but were too scared to talk. Utterly bizarre. Was home alone taking a shower. As I was washing my hair, I had my eyes closed. Something ran its hand down my back. I screamed and turned around expecting my husband. No one was there. It never happened again, but was very unnerving. Literally all of our worst fear. Went to go see a remote property, and my agent had the heebie-jeebies. The house was sectioned off oddly, and she said she thought it felt like we were being filmed and things were set up to put us in certain spots. I thought she was just being paranoid. Anyways, we end up finding a weird hidden doorway, and inside, it's pitch black with some dude staring at multiple screens with cameras all over the house. No, that's scary.
Why is it that when we were kids, we wanted so badly to dig tunnels and holes in the sandbox? Why is it that millions of kids every day play Minecraft? Could it be that humans once lived underground? Now, there was these two men out of Portland. They were ex-military, they were outdoorsmen, and they'd spent a lot of time in this area. Now, they go hiking one weekend out near Mount Hood. And they get to this particular point up on the mountain where there's this sort of lookout. Now, one of the men, he has his phone out and he was taking pictures. When he drops his phone off the side of this mountain, it goes down about like 40, 50 feet. So he says, I need to get my phone. Like, I can't leave it down there. I got important information on there. Like, I need to go down there. So he rappels down the side of this mountain to this ledge where his phone fell. And his buddy is up on the lookout holding onto the rope. So this man goes down and he rappels about 40, 50 feet. And as his buddy is holding this rope, he cannot see his friend. He starts feeling something tugging the rope. And it's pulling really hard. So he thinks, like maybe he just made it to the ledge and he's signaling me. Well, he calls down to his name. Hey, Jeremiah, like, are you okay? He doesn't respond. Once again, Jeremiah, let me know you made it. He doesn't respond. So about 10 minutes pass and he realizes, like, I better go down and check on him. So he ties this rope around a tree and he starts rappelling down. And eventually he comes down to this ledge. When he gets to the ledge, he can see there's this big opening on the side of the mountain, some kind of cave. He doesn't see his friend and he doesn't see the phone. So he says, wait a second, I can call his phone, maybe I can hear it, and I'll know exactly where he might be. So he dials his phone, and the phone starts ringing, and it was coming from within inside this cave. So he makes his way into this cave, and he starts following the sound of the phone. He said that's when he came upon his friend. He's laying on the ground. He was badly hurt, and he had no idea what happened to him. And he said right at that moment, he could hear something in the back of the cave. And as he turns his flashlight in that direction, he said he could see a hand sticking out of one of the rocks. So he said, hello, is anyone there? There was no response. He walks a little closer, and he said as he shone the flashlight on that hand, it came into picture more clear. There were these three men. They were tall, they were skinny, they were very pale, and they had these big bulbous eyes that were sticking out of their head. And they were just watching him. So he takes off running back to his friend, and he starts trying to get his friend to wake up. His friend finally comes to, and he says, we need to get out of this cave, like something's going on. So they make their way out of the cave, and he's able to tie his friend around this rope. He climbs back up to the top, and he pulls him up. And he said eventually they made it out of there, but still to this day, they had no idea what they encountered. And he said he felt like they were some kind of humans that had maybe evolved to live underground. The most terrifying hiking trail in the United States is located in Tennessee, in the Appalachia, a place called the Norton Creek Trail. Now, the Norton Creek Trail is about an hour from Knoxville, Tennessee, and probably about 20 minutes from Gatlinburg. Now, this trail goes through the Smoky Mountain National Park, and this area has the highest concentration of old pioneer cemeteries and abandoned homesteads that you can actually visit. This area is known for ghostly apparitions, orbs, people disappearing. There is a famous story about a pioneer settler who went looking for his missing daughter on this trail and actually was found unalived. Now, the creepiest legend, though, in this area is that of Spearfinger. Now, Spearfinger is this old Cherokee legend that there is this witch who they described as being sometimes 40 feet tall, having skin like rocks, and this long, sharp finger that is shaped like a spear. And the creepy thing about Spearfinger is that she could shapeshift. She could be anyone, your auntie, your cousin, your best friend. And she could be walking right behind you. You turn around and she sticks her long spear finger into your back, rips out your liver, and eats it. Now, this story comes from this same general area. There was this woman who said when she was a young girl, her and her brothers and sisters, they lived in this small shack in the Appalachian Mountains. And she said, they were very poor. So this house was, not that big. They all shared a bedroom. And they said their father had to leave them alone for a couple days. So their auntie came to stay with them. So they said, one night they're hanging out with our auntie and they're joking, they're having a good time. When all of a sudden, they said the air just got stale. And they could feel almost like a cold breeze blowing into the house. And they said the dogs started to freak out and bark and go crazy, like someone was outside. So the auntie got really, really nervous and really scared. She takes the kids and they all go up into this attic where the father had made kind of like a safe area for them to hide if anything were to ever happen. So they're all sitting up in the attic, and there's, this tiny little hole that they could see down into, the downstairs. And they said all of a sudden the door opened up, and they said in walked this little old lady. And they said she just kind of, was touching everything around their house. And she said all of a sudden this old woman started saying, "Come out, children, come out. I got something for you. Come down here. I want to tell you a story." And she started, acting like she was this concerning old woman who wanted to give the kids, stories and candy. And so the kids started to say to the auntie, like, "Can we go down there? Can we see her? Can we see her?" And she's, "Quiet, just be quiet." And the more they resisted, the more this woman was like, "Come down here, kids. Come down here. I got something for you. Like, I have some toys." And, they're like, "Oh my goodness, we don't have no toys. Like, we should go down there. We should go down there." And the auntie's like, no, fighting with them, saying like, "You have to stay up here in the attic." And so they said all of a sudden, the woman kind of disappeared out of sight. And as they're looking down this little hole, they said the next thing they knew, a finger popped up through the hole and started, moving around. And she said the auntie and the kids are all scared because they're seeing like this finger just coming up through the hole. And they said the finger started to grow and grow, and it became almost like this long, sharp spear. And they said it started to move around the attic, and they had to like avoid it because it was almost hitting them. And the auntie just started saying these prayers like over and over again. And they said all of a sudden it was like, boom, like they had woken up from a dream. This old woman was gone. The air seemed normal. And so the auntie brings them down from the attic. And she said the next day when her auntie went outside, all of their animals that they had out there were like mutilated, torn apart. And she said to this day, she is afraid to go out in the woods in this area.
Might have known the story of real life boogeyman.
Have you ever had sleep paralysis? Now, one of the things that people tell me who've experienced sleep paralysis is that they often see these very dark negative entities. Is this just simply a side effect of sleep paralysis, or is something else happening? Now, this is a story that I had heard out of Tennessee. There was this man who one day he went to bed, and he said he just had this dream, but in his dream it felt really real. Like he woke up, he went to work, he, ate dinner and did everything throughout his whole entire day, but it was just a dream. And then he woke up. We said as he woke up, he noticed he could not move his body. And he just like felt like something was wrong, and he felt just this sense of dread. And he said all of a sudden he sees something like come up on the side of him. And he said it was this gray looking being with sharp nails, like jagged teeth, solid black eyes, no hair. And this thing was just sort of looking at him and staring at his face. And he said this thing just kind of got up and it walked around his room and was kind of making like this almost hissing type sound. Like, and he said then all of a sudden it was like he finally woke up and everything was all right. And like he looked around his room, that thing, whatever it wasn't there. So he like went and talked to his friend about it the next day, and his friend said, you probably had sleep paralysis. And he thought, well, like I don't know much about that, but maybe you're right. So next night he goes to bed, right? And same thing happens. He has like the same dream that he goes throughout his day, and then he wakes up and he can't move. And once again, he sees this thing in his room. And he said this thing went over to his like dresser and opens the dresser up and starts pulling like his clothes out and is like looking at it and kind of moving it around. And then he said this thing was just kind of going around his room looking through all of his stuff. And then he once again wakes up and this thing is no longer in his room. And this went on for weeks. But he said he started to notice like as like this progressed, it was harder and harder for him to wake up. And no matter how hard he tried, like it would just take forever for him to kind of get through this dream. So he said this one specific night, everything happens the same and he wakes up, can't move. And that thing was in his room. And he said this thing just sort of lifted up his shirt and then scratched him on his chest. And then he lifted up his pant leg and moved his, claws down his leg and like scratched his leg. And he was trying his hardest to wake up. And he said he could hear his roommate outside, like talking out of the room, but he couldn't scream. He couldn't say anything to like get his friend's attention. And then finally, boom, he like woke up. And when he woke up, he said he felt like burning on his stomach or on his chest and on his leg. And when he looked, he had scratch marks, that were actually there from his dream. And so he told his friend, like what was going on. And he showed him the scratch marks. And he said, well, have you thought about like doing sort of this like sage blessing over your room and stuff? So he did some research and got some sage, and he said he did this like sage thing over his room. And after that, the dreams stopped and they went away. But he always like thought about, could it ever come back?
My dad was followed home by dwendes. When my dad was a kid, he and my grandpa went to my grandpa's land to prepare the soil for planting crops. Bored, my dad wandered off to a nearby stream, where he saw a bunch of human-like dolls playing around in the water. He said they looked like adults, only smaller, with proportions like dolls. Not really sure what that means. They splashed around in the water, and at times it looked like they were even walking on it. They signaled at him to come and play with them, and my dad ran over excitedly. He said he played with them for a while. When my grandpa noticed that he wandered off, he went to go find him. When Grandpa found my dad, seemingly playing alone by the stream, getting all wet, he got super mad and dragged him away. Apparently, my grandpa and grandma were never able to see the dwendes whenever my dad would point to them. My dad still recalls looking back when my grandpa yanked him away and seeing the duendes waving goodbye at him. After that, my dad started seeing the duendes around the house. They'd pop out from behind the walls. During dinner, my dad would try to feed them scraps of food, much to my grandpa's annoyance. Eventually, they got worried and took him to a local curandera. She did a little ritual and told him to keep a cigarette behind his ear for a week. And then, the duendes were gone. He never saw them again. My dad swears this is all true, even though no one believes him, and he's embarrassed about even telling the story. But what does a cigarette behind the ear have to do with pushing away duendes? Have you heard of that? I mean, if you have, I would love to read in the comments, because now I have even more questions. Like, what does it do to them?
So let's talk about this documentary for a little bit. I just watched Inside the Manosphere, and I was expecting to see a whole bunch of red pill ideology and misogynist talking points, but I also saw something a little bit more revealing, that it's essentially all a grift. Reminder that I cover a lot of dark stuff on this page, so follow along if you like that stuff and want to hear more. This documentary sums up what the shit Sunday is, that is, the manosphere. Allow me to explain it for you. So the foundation is to pander hate. You target young, disenfranchised boys and young men who maybe don't have a stable home life and are feeling incredibly isolated and lonely. And then the toppings are, they're going to confirm how shitty and unvaluable and terrible and weak you are. And then the whipped cream and the cherry on top, well, there's actually a reason you're feeling this way. And I know exactly what it is.
It's women.
Not wealth inequality or systemic oppression. It's feminism. Duh. The only way that you can eat that sundae is if you listen to their podcast, or if you buy their course, or if you take their supplements. Rinse and repeat. Now, here's the irony that I am kind of sitting with after watching this. A lot of the subjects have really difficult home lives themselves, and grew up with either single mothers or absent fathers, and now they're kind of performing a version of masculinity that they never received. What's worse is that they are repeating the cycle of violence, if not making it worse. Here's why I say that. I don't know if any of these influencers actually believe this shit. Every single one of the subjects said in one way or another that if they are pissing someone off, they are doing their job, and that they will violate any kind of ethical or moral boundaries they may have had if it gains them money and attention. And it's become a self-perpetuating nightmare of going viral because you say hateful shit, and saying hateful shit because you go viral. It honestly seems like their personalities and opinions are completely modeled off of what gets them the most clout. To put it simply, I would say that the manosphere is not a movement, it is a trauma response with a Venmo link. Disaffected young men are a major cultural pain point around the world, and the Red Pill movement pokes at that pain point just right. This is a product of a few men who discovered how to monetize their unprocessed childhood issues. Women right now are the most convenient thing to blame because they're too scared to look at what actually hurt them. So the next time you see any of these men, just remember that all of these men were raised by a woman. And maybe, just maybe, they never forgave her for not being a man.
In honor of Women's History Month, I'm doing 31 Days of Women in Horror. If you watched horror in the late 2000s, you probably saw Juliana Gill running for her life. Juliana Gill became a familiar face in the 2010s if you watched horror and thrillers. In 2009, she appeared in the reboot of the legendary Friday the 13th as Bree, one of the unlucky campers who crossed paths with Jason Voorhees. That same year, she starred in the MTV horror cult film My Super Sweet Psycho 16. She played Madison Penrose, who was a spoiled teen caught in a birthday massacre. Then in 2010, she played in part 2 of My Super Psycho Sweet 16. She was on a roll in 2010 because she also played Mel in Altitude. In 2012, she continued her horror run, appearing in Apparition as Lydia, and in Mind Games as Claire. In 2015, she played Brittany Wilcox in Killing Poe. And in 2019, she played in Blumhouse's anthology Into the Dark. She played in the episode called Treehouse as Kara Wheeler. Juliana Gill helped bring horror in the 2010s, with a mix of slasher films, supernatural thrillers, and psychological horror. Come back tomorrow for my 31 Days of Women in Horror for Women's History Month.
The story really starts in 1985 in a small area called Bear Brook State Park. So, someone hiking through the woods came across something very strange. A barrel, just lone in the woods. And inside the barrel were the decomposing bodies of a woman and a young girl. So, the police immediately knew that they were dealing with a homicide, but the problem was that they didn't know who or what the motive was. And they also had no idea who the victims were themselves. And as if things couldn't get any worse, 15 years later, another barrel was discovered. So police were searching in the same exact area as the last barrel was found, and they ended up finding another barrel. At that moment, investigators realized, like, oh shit, we've got 4 deceased bodies in random barrels throughout the forest. 2 barrels dumped in the woods. Nobody knows who's inside. 15 years apart. That's insane. So for years, the case went cold. Investigators just kind of assumed that it was a mother and her 3 children, but they had no solid proof or evidence that this was. I mean, they had absolutely no missing persons reports. They had no means of getting any DNA. Well, they did have means of getting the DNA, but however, the DNA had no hits in the database. Honestly, it felt as if these people had never even existed in the first place. They just appeared in these barrels one day. But eventually, a suspect emerged, a man who had gone by multiple identities for decades. But his real name was Terry Rasmutin. It took everything in me not to refer to him as Terry Rasputin this whole entire time. I'm so sorry. We're just gonna call him Terry, okay? Investigators discovered something very chilling about Mr. Terry. But like I said, he'd been living under fake identities for decades, for years, just, moving state to state under different names every single state he went to. And something very suspicious about Mr. Terry Rasputin was that women and children just randomly kept disappearing whenever he was around. So, Terry Rasputin, what the fuck is going on here? So Terry eventually became something that investigators really didn't like to say out loud, and that would be a serial killer. Authorities do believe that he was the one who unalived these people and placed them in the barrels all of those decades ago. But investigators do believe that the suspect count could be much, much, much higher, which makes sense. Got away with it 4 times, why not 14 times? Why not 46 times? What's stopping him? Apparently not the police. And I'm almost certain that this number was much higher because Terry lived with a number of different women, and multiple of those women later vanished. And there was one of his girlfriends that actually did disappear under very odd circumstances. And another one just randomly disappeared, again, under very odd circumstances. And even one of his very own children was found dead states away. So here's where the story gets kind of more unsettling, as if it already wasn't unsettling as it is. So he moved around the United States constantly in New England, California, Oregon, Arizona, New Hampshire, and investigators do believe that he used these remote areas to stash his bodies, which I do know that New Hampshire and Vermont are very popular areas for that type of thing, so it doesn't strike me as odd that he was using New Hampshire for that type of thing. So investigators begged the question, is there more bodies hidden around New England that, came from this man's brutality? Now, they were just doing everything that they could to make more connections to this man and solve as many cases as they possibly could. So what makes this story especially disturbing, I think, is just how long it went unsolved. And honestly, him going out his life just thinking that he got away with all of that, that's completely insanity. Wow. The first bodies were discovered in 1985, but the investigators didn't find the killer until 2017. That's over 30 years. That's a lot of time for a serial killer to make his way around the country and do God knows what to however many people he wants to. And mind you, this entire time he was going by fake names around the whole country. So how are they going to make this connection? I don't know. This town is just so close to, where that happened, and it just strikes me as, and not odd, but not even surprising, to be honest with you, that they pick small little seacoast towns or small towns in general to do these types of horrendous things. Yeah, and you would never know that a place like this, a place so beautiful like this, would be the catalyst in somebody's demise. You know what I mean? How can a place like this become somebody's nightmare? Thank you for joining me today.
This crime case makes me severely uncomfortable for a number of reasons. In September of 2011, everything changed for this beautiful young girl. But we're going to backtrack a little bit to figure out what exactly happened to Maple. Maple grows up surrounded by big dreams. Her family moves from India to Canada when she's just a young girl. Maple grows into someone who is vibrant, confident, and ambitious. And if you can't already tell, extremely gorgeous. The type of person who can walk into a room and pull attention without even trying. Maple loves fashion, acting, and modeling. This girl has really big dreams ahead of her. Or so she thought they were ahead of her. Photo shoots, cameras, bright lights. Maple is also a girl who is very energetic. Like, she talks really fast and she always loves to have a conversation with anybody that she meets. In school, she is studying health sciences and thinking about becoming a doctor one day. But there's just this other dream that keeps calling her more than becoming a doctor, and that's the modeling. She just loved modeling. Just as everything is moving so positively for Maple, she meets a young man who quickly sweeps her off her feet. His name was Gurjindi Dhaliwal, but he went by Gary. They meet through mutual friends. Everything is going really good. It's easy. It's comfortable. She really likes this boy. Like, could this be her future husband? That's what she's thinking, but we don't quite know yet. He's charming when he wants to be. Confident, very protective of Maple. He's the type of guy who pays close attention, but maybe a little too close of attention. At first, Maple doesn't see anything wrong with that. Like, oh, he's my boyfriend. He's a little protective. Like, that's cutesy and all, you know, but it gets to a point. Your relationship grows intense very quickly. At first it feels like affection, and then it starts to feel like pressure. Oh, what are you wearing? Why are you out so late? You said you'd be home at 6. It's 6:30. Like, chill off me. Damn. Maple started to look more stressed than happy. And as you can assume, slowly but surely the relationship begins to crack, because when you're in a relationship, you need trust. There's no reason why she's going out with 2 of her friends to a coffee shop and he's blowing her up with like 20 messages asking her why she's there so long, who is she there with, who are these friends' names, like as if it's any of your goddamn business. She starts to kind of push away from Gary, and she's just starting to kind of focus on her photo shoots, her modeling, her schoolwork, you know, just kind of like, okay, I need to focus on me now. She's like, I still love you, but like, you gotta give me some space. Do we know the word? Leave me alone. Starting to take some time for herself, and it seems like, okay, like she's getting away from him, but then he's kind of starting to budge in more and more and more, making it very difficult for her to be able to do anything without him just putting himself inside of every single situation that the girl's in. This goes on for a couple years, yes, years, like 3 to 4, and it just started feeling like a closing chapter for Maple. She's just like, I'm over it. Just, let's wrap it up. Your chapter has flopped. For lack of better words. Time passes and Maple just continues to live her life. She's doing her own thing. She's having fun with friends. She's young. She's only 19. She's beautiful. She can do whatever she wants right now. But beneath the smile on her face, tensions are still growing with Gary. He's blowing up her messages. He's still calling her. He wants to be with her, yada yada. She's just like, dude, Dad, I told you, it's a wrap. It is a cold, windy night on September 28th, 2011. Just picture the night. It's dark, it's late, extremely cold and quiet. Maple spends the night studying with friends at Simon Fraser University. There's actually not many people there. I think it's just her and a couple of friends, and most students have already left the university and gone home to sleep. She's like, okay, it's late. I'm gonna go home, get some rest. She begins making the long trip to the parking garage where her vehicle is, so she can get in it, drive home, and go to sleep. Her car is at like the very top of the parking garage, so it's several layers up. Everything seems calm. Everything seems normal. This is a routine for her. Nothing she hasn't done before. But somewhere nearby, someone else waits too. Watching, timing, planning. Maple reaches her car and she unlocks it. Then there's just sudden chaos. Screams, panic, and within minutes, her screams are silenced. Someone actually phones into 911 saying that they heard screams or what sounded like an attack or a disturbance. They don't know who the call is for. The callers did not know where the screams were coming from or what was going on. They just heard something that sounded like someone was being hurt violently. What students were left there start to gather around. There's cop cars. It's just a fucking circus going on right now, because what's happening, who's hurt. Investigators make it to the top level of the parking garage, and that's when they find Maple, and she is suffering from gunshot wounds and stab wounds. Like, damn, both? As if shooting her wasn't enough. I mean, it wasn't long before police knew who did this, and unfortunately Maple succumbed to her injuries and she did pass away. As I usually say, I'm not going to give him a lot of my time. Fuck him, he's a little pussy ass bitch, whatever. Maple should have been able to grow up and accomplish the dreams that she had, acting, modeling, even being a doctor, whatever she wanted to do. But because of this little nincompoop, she couldn't do that. So like I said, fuck him, and I hope this beautiful girl rests in peace. And this is just tragic that this happened to her, because men, they get rejected. I can't have you. Are you gonna cry? Are your feelings hurt? She was too pretty for you. You're just mad because you couldn't have her anymore. Anyway, I love you guys. I'm back. I'm so back. It's been months since I've posted, but Crime Queen is back, and I'm going to be posting way more. I'm sorry it took me so long, but I love you guys. Bye.